Welcome back. I'm David Schuster in for Rachel tonight. A senior cabinet member from the Bush administration is under Justice Department investigation and faces potential criminal charges for political corruption. President George W. Bush's first Interior Secretary, Gale Norton, is the first and only Bush cabinet secretary to be the subject of a formal criminal corruption investigation. The Los Angeles Times is reporting that a federal grand jury right here in Washington is investigating Norton and has subpoenaed records from energy giant Royal Dutch Shell. The grand jury is looking into whether Norton talked to Shell in 2006 about giving her a job, while at the same time she was heading up an agency that was handing out lucrative deals to Shell. In early 2006, Norton's Interior Department granted Shell Oil 3 valuable leases on federal lands in Colorado to explore for oil shale. 2 months later, in March, Norton resigned from the Interior Department, and 9 months after that, Shell announced Norton was hired. Norton became general counsel for Shell's Unconventional Resources Division. Unconventional resources meaning new technologies like oil shale. So Norton's Interior Department grants a huge oil shale deal to Shell. Norton quits 2 months later and gets a job from Shell to oversee the division that includes oil shale shortly after that. Maybe it's all a coincidence, and maybe Gale Norton will be subpoenaed next, so she'll get the chance to make that case before the grand jury. Joining us now, Los Angeles Times energy and environment reporter Jim Tankersley, who first reported the Justice Department probe into Gale Norton. Mr. Tankersley, thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
What do the subpoenas issued to Shell ask for specifically?
Well, they're looking for any evidence of contact between Shell and Gale Norton at the time when she was secretary and before she quit and went to work for Shell. What they're looking for is a violation of a federal law that says if you are a federal official, you can't oversee a process that financially benefits a company you're in active negotiations to go work for.
So they would start with subpoenas for emails and phone call lists and whatnot to try to put the main focus on these connections. Any indication as to whether or not Gale Norton has received a target letter or any sort of formal warning that she might be indicted?
Well, my colleague Josh Meyer and I, who broke this story, our sources have told us that it's very likely that that's the sort of thing that would come at the end of the investigation, the actual interviewing of Gale Norton. We do know that Shell has been made formally aware of the investigation. They initially told us that they were not formally aware of it, and then after our story ran last month, they said that they were now, in fact, formally aware of it.
How many other companies put bids in for the oil shale leases? Did they have the technology to get at the oil shale as well?
Well, more than a dozen applied, and each of the companies that applied thought that they had, of course, the type of technology. This is not an easy process, squeezing petroleum out of rock in the Rocky Mountains. It takes a lot of heat, and it's very costly. And so what the Interior Department was looking to do was to find companies who could develop a technology to do this on a commercial scale, and they ended up handing out 6 leases, 3 of them to Shell, and a bunch of companies, including Exxon, went home empty-handed.
Explain why these oil shale leases are so valuable to energy companies.
Well, the lease can be turned from just the 160 acres that are handed out for this research and development into more than 5,000 acres, and that's very, very valuable land. You're talking about potentially billions of barrels of oil for Shell underneath the 3 tracts of land it was given, which, when you do the math with the cost of oil today, could be close to $1 trillion of profit for Shell if they recover the entire resource.
And then finally, Jim, any word from Gale Norton or her attorney in response to this grand jury investigation?
We haven't been able to get a hold of Secretary Norton, and so far as I can tell from the other folks who have been trying to cover the story, no one else has either. So she has been mum on all of this.
LA Times reporter Jim Tankersley, fascinating investigation. Jim, thanks for coming on the show tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.